my pleasure to introduce our speaker this morning, Reverend Dr. Raymont Anderson. He's an ordained Centers for Spiritual Living minister, and he serves as the founding minister and spiritual director of this Center for Spiritually Integrated Arts, which is a Centers for Spiritual Living teaching center. He brings his years of being a professional educator, visual artist, visual art performer, ASL interpreter, author, lover of comics, films, and all areas of his life and his ministry. He's frequently a sought-after guest at various churches, centers, and events. For him, ministry extends beyond the church center. He facilitates workshops related to radical self-care, living with purpose, LGBTQ empowerment, exploring, expressing creativity, and much more. He's both the co-lead for his local Moms Demand Action and the chapter's interfaith lead and participant in the Survivor Fellowship. When he's not teaching, speaking, writing, creating, performing, he loves spending time with his family, which includes harassing his amazing grandchildren. All right, here we have this morning, Reverend Dr. Raymont Anderson.
Namaste and greetings. Thank you so very much, Vance. Thank you, Maya. Thank you, everyone who is present today. Good morning, CSL Midtown family. What is up? It is, as always, great being with you. And, can you tell I'm buttering you up? Because, today, Maya told you what we're talking about today. Today, we are discussing a rather uncomfortable topic, a topic that many people, many times, in many ways, would refer to it as non-spiritual. And yet, how could it not be if God is all there is, the infinite I am is all there is, spirit is all there is, the universe is all there is, then how could it not also be within the scope of spirituality? So, yes, we are talking about trauma today, but we are not going to talk about it in the way that you might be thinking. So let me begin with a brief story. Many years ago, when I lived in Prince George's County in Maryland, a friend of mine who was a sheriff at the time shared something with me, a bit of information about a not too far nearby neighborhood hospital, where she said that there are times when people are shot in D.C., in Washington, D.C., and the paramedics will drive them across the state lines, county lines, drive them from there 45 minutes to this particular hospital, even though there are other hospitals closer by. Same thing for various places in Maryland. They will drive an extra amount of time where one would think, well, wait a minute, if you are driving further, then are you not reducing the amount of possible? And so I said, why are they doing that? Because this one particular hospital specializes in gunshot trauma, which means the fact that these people are masters of handling this particular type of trauma, even though the drive to get there is longer, once they are in these people's capable hands, their chances of survival quadruple. Okay, pause and put that in your mind. Also, let me share that there was a time where, let me stop telling you an untruth. There's a time now where I and my sister Tracy, where we will drive an hour to get to a particular restaurant, particular Chinese restaurant, even though there's a Chinese restaurant 20 minutes away. Why an hour? Well, think about it. Because it's the same thing. With both of these examples, the idea is we are going where we are being served. We are going where we are receiving that which we desire, be it health and well-being or delicious food. Whatever it is, we are willing to go there for it. So let us ask the same thing. Our centers, our churches, our communities, what are we offering? Are we offering people who are coming from all kinds of backgrounds something that is nutritious for their body, minds, and spirits? Now, there are some people who would say that, Sunday, this thing we call a sermon, a message, a talk, that it should be inspirational only. Well, personally, as someone from my firsthand experience who has attended various events and services, etc., that completely changed the trajectory of my life, I know the importance of offering more than just inspiration. Because inspiration by itself, while good, is only going to represent, resonate, connect, align with someone who is at that phone number. Get what I'm saying? If someone who is in the throes of trauma and desperation, I just became unhoused. I can be inspired, but if the words of inspiration aren't addressing my trauma as someone who is unhoused, as someone who just found out my mother has 6 months to live, as someone who just received the cancer diagnosis, as someone who, then the inspiration is about as useful as giving a photograph of a sandwich to a person who is starving. This thing called trauma is a very uncomfortable topic for a variety of reasons. But if we are really going to benefit a world that works for all, then we have an option. If someone's nose is bleeding, option 1, give them a handkerchief. Option number 2, stop their nose from bleeding. Which option would you prefer? The average person would rather actually have the trauma be addressed rather than simply bypassing or metaphysically malpracticing their experience, their symptoms. So we have the opportunity to feed people from a huge banquet-style menu, or we can simply hand out a series of hors d'oeuvres, appetizers, and items from the 99-cent dollar menu. It's a choice. Neither of these are wrong or bad, but what we're saying is, because the dollar menu stuff is going to satisfy someone's hunger in the moment. But if we know that more is available, we know that true life-affirming power is available, would we not give them that rather than simply some onion rings? It has been said, give a person a fish and they eat for a day. Teach them to fish and they eat for a lifetime. To which I always add, well, give them a fish while teaching them to fish. Because if they are nourished, they are going to learn throughout the process far easier. So it need not be either or. We need not address trauma from either or. It can be both and. We can be spiritual beings who understand the infinite oneness, that God is all there is, that we are connected, that we can never be separated, while also understanding that a friend, a family member, or ourselves feel depression, grief, fear, anxiety, and more. So in this idea of discussing trauma, it benefits us to do so from the awareness that no matter what is going on in our individual lives, our collective communities, or in the world, the truth of our being, even in the midst of what's going on, the truth of our being is wholeness, perfection, and completeness. And it's precisely because of that truth that we are able to move through the process of healing, evolving, shifting, changing, transforming. Because if there was no such thing as physical health, then there would be no possibility for the surgeons to address a bullet wound. If there was no such thing as health and well-being, there would be no thing for the nurses to do to help my blood pressure be lowered, because there is no such thing as healthy blood pressure. But because there is wholeness, perfection, and completeness, even in the midst of the trauma, We can know the truth while working through the process. Breathe. So, how are we as practitioners, whether we are licensed or not, how are we invited to address trauma and move into healing it, whether it is our own or someone else's? If we are to truly support every individual's right and opportunity to a grand rising, to know the truth about themselves, to be set free by the truth of themselves, then this topic, which is often taboo, trauma, we have to move through that and get to a space of there is no such thing as a taboo topic in spiritual community. Now, one of the things Maya said about the idea of old new thought and then new thought. Traditionally, we have taught things, practiced things such as the law of attraction, and we have taught things where we've implied that what you speak about, you bring about, that being against something means you're attracting more of it because energy flows where attention goes. We have shunned people and shamed them and blamed them for their experiences. How? By insinuating that they created it. What's in your consciousness? Or that they did this somehow because of a soul contract. Let us be clear that this is a grade school version of spirituality versus a university level spirituality. Yes, there are elements to the truth. Law of attraction. Yes, just as there is basic math, 2 + 2 = 4. And that is not absent from college level trigonometry and calculus. But how is the basic math and the order of operations, how is it being carried out? How is it being practiced? Because very few people, if any, are immune from trauma. There are adverse childhood experiences, poverty, unhoused, medical trauma, collective experiences of things like war, displacement, terrorism, mass shootings, natural disasters, just to name a few. Did you know that many health organizations have identified that the effects of COVID, the recent pandemic, has left many of us traumatized, and yet many of us don't realize that we're traumatized as a result of it? Dr. Sean Ginwright says, we are all wounded and carry the shame and pain in ways we are unaware of. Yet, we are not equipped with the skills or the awareness to heal our trauma. And yet, within Science of Mind 4.0, we are equipped. Because that's what I refer to this as. What I practice, Science of Mind and Spirit 4.0. And Science of Mind and Spirit 4.0 provides a strong, relevant, and effective foundation of principles and practices to support and facilitate our healing. If we are willing to go beyond knowing truth in spiritual mind treatment to applying truth. Treat and move our feet. What if we practice this thing called Science of Mind and Spirit as a trauma-informed Science of Mind and Spirit, a trauma-informed new thought? What might that do for our communities? When someone is experiencing whatever it is that they are experiencing, and we have a deeper understanding that gives them the space and the capacity to share authentically. That when Maya says to me, hey, Ray, how are you today? I need not put on a happy face because I don't want her to judge me. Put on a happy face. Well, I'm being inauthentic. I'm not in integrity if I have to lie because I'm afraid that Maya is then going to turn around and say, well, maybe you shouldn't talk about that. Maybe you should tell a different story. But what happened to me is what happened to me. Yes, but if you... And so I don't come back to the community because I feel shame. But what happens when Maya says, "Hey Ray, what's going on? How are you today?" And I can share completely, authentically, and openly, and Maya listens because she is listening through the ears of someone who understands what trauma-informed new thought means, what trauma-informed new thought can do for the person she is listening to. She tenderly, through her listening, envelops me, nurtures me, supports me, gives me the space to breathe freely. What can that do? And then we bring in all kinds of topics that we have avoided. How can science of mind and spirit help eliminate, not reduce, eliminate mass shootings in schools, movie theaters, churches, nightclubs? How can science of mind and spirit create a more effective, if people are going to own guns, how can science of mind shift the consciousness so that there is more effective gun ownership? How can science of mind and spirit 4.0 address the situation of poverty or the unhoused, the fentanyl and opioid epidemic? Because simply not talking about it when there are people dying is immature spiritual practice. And we don't use the word, but it's blasphemy. To recognize that God is all there is, but to not live, move, and have our beingness in such a manner that I, through my presence, am helping you know that which God is as you. Because I'm denying certain things that you have experienced. I don't want to talk about that. I don't want to hear about that. Can't we all just kumbaya and just pretend? Can't we all just come to, church on Sunday, come to the center on Sunday, and leave the entire world out there to fend for itself? I just want this 1 hour just to be reminded that God is all there is, love is all there is, and what it is I am. I just want to feel happy. I hear you. Which is why, for me, our centers, we are being invited to see our centers in a multitude of ways. It is a place of quote unquote worship, a place of recognizing your divinity. It is a hospital for those who need triage. It is a physical therapy place for those who need to continue working on mobility and flexibility. It is an educational facility for those who are ready to learn. It is a recreational place where we come together and we potluck and we, play dominoes and we go to the movies and we laugh and we joke. It is all of these and more. It's not just a place where we come together, hold hands, and sing kumbaya and ignore what's going on in the world. Because let's go back to, suppose Maya comes up to me and Maya says, "Hey, Ray," and I say, "Hey, Maya, how are you doing?" And Maya says, "Well, I've had a rough," I don't want to hear that. You ask me how I'm doing. Yeah, but I don't want to hear that. And I can see Maya's face right now as I'm saying that. Like, did you just shut me down? But let us think. We shut people down when they come to our communities. We don't do it in quite that manner, but we do it. To say to someone something like, "Well, Ray, I don't see color." You're shutting me down. Because what you're doing is denying the fact that that which God is incarnated itself as a 5'10", brown-skinned, divine being. But what you're saying is, I don't see color. I don't see this one aspect of what God has chosen, how God has chosen to express itself. But wait a minute, because when you go to buy bananas in the grocery store, you clearly can see the difference between the green banana and the yellow banana, the green tomato and the red tomato. You can clearly see the color there. But when it comes to me, we disregard and shut people down in a great many ways. So our invitation with this whole idea of trauma is to understand trauma it is a far-reaching. We could be here for a whole month talking about this, and I got about 6 minutes left. So I invite everyone to simply engage in doing a little research to see someone who is experiencing trauma. It can show up as interpersonal conflict, chronic pain, low self-esteem, self-loathing, depression, numbing. Like, how many people simply roll as a mindless activity to numb themselves so that they need not address whatever? If we are going to move into a space of true healing, then as Mark Nepo says, the truth is that telling, talking, communicating heals, not just once, but as a way of being that filters in the heart of its debris. When we talk about stuff, we are engaging in healing. When we truly talk about it. Layla F. Saad says, if you tell the real, raw, ugly truths to get to the rotten core of such things as internalized white supremacy, then what you put out into the world will be beyond transformational. We cannot create a world that works for all without addressing the caste system. We cannot talk about equity without talking about inequity. We cannot talk about true healing without talking about trauma. How rational is it to, hold on, I have to call a plumber, to contact a plumber without telling them why you're contacting them? So I have a situation with my sink. Well, what's going on with your sink? Well, I mean, in CSL, we don't talk about the problem. So there's something up with my sink. Yeah, but I'm asking, like, because I need to know what tools to bring. I can't tell you. How rational is it? How rational is it to go to a physician because you're in pain, but you will not tell them where it hurts, what hurts, how it hurts, the intensity of the hurt? I'm here. Yes, Ray, why are you here? How do you feel? I feel good. Then why are you here? Why are you in the ER and you feel good? I don't know how to talk about I'm in pain, but if I talk about my pain, then I'm going to attract more pain. And if I talk about my depression, I'm going to create more depression. If I talk about how rational is it? If we go to a doctor, a physician, then we share if we truly want them to do what they do. We want the plumber to fix the sink. Hey, Culligan, man, then let the plumber fix the sink. Tell them what's going on. As the song earlier said, yes, we shall overcome, but we shall overcome only when we realize that overcome means healing. And we cannot heal what we will not address. So as a quick example, within New Thought, we are a hugging people, and we generally just run up and hug folks without recognizing that for some folks who have been traumatized in a variety of ways, they don't want to be hugged. And in ignoring that of them, we're ignoring them and their needs, which increases the likelihood that they are not going to return. So we want thriving communities. We want the beloved community. We want a world that works for all. Well, then we have to change. We have to be willing, as Mark Singer says, we have to be willing to be open, because when you open, you bring more energy into the system, and the system can heal. Energy can heal, which is why love can heal. We are no longer talking about a micro. Hopefully you can hear me now. I don't know what happened there. If we want, as I said, I will repeat, If we want to truly heal, then we have to be willing to address whatever is going on. If we want our communities to thrive, we want the beloved community, we want all of that, then we have to be willing to move into a new space of prophetic vision, liberation theology, where nothing is off the table. Dr. Holmes said, in this science of mind and spirit, we believe that everyone's life is a drama which takes place on three planes: the physical, the mental, and the spiritual. We should have no objections to any form of healing. For anything that helps to overcome, heal, suffering is good. Whether it is a pill or a prayer, we believe in any method which produces results. For each has its place in the whole. Each has its place in the whole. So our invitation is, look at the thing, call a thing, whatever it is, see it, understand it, and then move through the process of healing it. Not as a microwave theology where you put it in 30 seconds and it's done, but as an ongoing practice. Because this thing, science of mind and spirit, is an ongoing practice. Creating a world that works for all is an ongoing practice. And so we breathe, and then we practice. And so it is.